Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today, we are not just reading a book. We are essentially walking onto a demolition site.
That is a very good way to put it.
But instead of, wrecking balls and dynamite taking down a building, what we have here are arguments and observations taking down, well, basically everything. Reality, the self, God, science, you name it.
It really is a scorched earth campaign. It's rare to find a text that is so utterly destructive, yet at the same time, it's written with this incredible calm and wit.
We are, of course, talking about David Hume's A Treatise of Human Nature.
The one and only.
A book that has been described, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, as the most important philosophical work ever written in English.
Mm-hmm.
And what really strikes me, just looking at the history of this thing, is the sheer audacity of it. I mean, Hume wasn't some gray-bearded sage when he wrote this. He was 23 years old when he started.
23.
23. I was barely figuring out how to do my laundry at 23. And this guy is trying to rewrite the entire operating system of the human mind.
It is the ultimate young man's book in that sense.
Yeah.
It has this just boundless ambition. He isn't trying to, add a little footnote to John Locke or Descartes.
Yeah.
He explicitly states his goal is to introduce the experimental method of reasoning into moral subjects. He's looking at the incredible success of the scientific revolution of Newton, and he's saying, why can't we do that for us, for our own psychology?
He calls it the science of man. And I think that's the real hook for this deep dive. We aren't just engaging in, abstract noodling here. We're watching someone try to march directly into the capital city of the sciences, which he thinks is human nature, and just conquer it.
That's the idea.
He thinks if we can understand the mind, we can understand everything else, because every other science is filtered through the mind.
And that is such a critical starting point. Mathematics, physics, religion, they're all products of human thought. So before we can look at the stars or the atoms, Hume says we have to look at the lens itself. Because if the lens is cracked, or if it's dirty, or if it just works in a weird way, then our entire view of the universe is going to be wrong.
And Hume's thesis, essentially, is that the lens isn't just dirty.
No.
It's constructed in a way that creates these unavoidable, powerful illusions.
That's it in a nutshell.
So let's set the stage a little before we dive into the illusions. We're in the 18th century. The Enlightenment is in full swing. What's the specific intellectual crisis that drives a 20-something Hume to sit down and write 3 massive volumes?
You have to picture the landscape. On one side, you have natural philosophy, what we would call science. Isaac Newton is basically a god in this era. He's mathematically described gravity, planetary motion, optics.
It's rigorous.
It's observable, and it works. It's this unbelievable triumph of the experimental method.
Science is just putting points on the board one after another.
Exactly. But then on the other side, you have moral philosophy, ethics, the study of the soul, the mind. And that field is, well, it's a disaster area, a total mess. Hume describes it as being full of noise and clamor. It's basically a bunch of guys in wigs shouting at each other about things they can't possibly prove.
Noise and clamor is such a wonderfully polite 18th century way of saying complete and utter nonsense.
It really was chaos. You had philosophers building these intricate castle-in-the-sky systems based on pure hypothesis and invention. They'd argue about the substance of the soul or the essence of angels or divine causes.
But none of it was grounded in anything.
Nothing you could actually see or touch. It was all metaphysics in the worst sense of the word.
So Hume looks at Newton, who is succeeding by observing the physical world, and then he looks at the philosophers who are failing by, guessing about the spiritual world, and he decides to apply Newton's method to the philosopher's problems.
He wants to clean up the mess. That's his whole project. His goal is to reject any idea, any term that cannot be traced back to experience. If you can't show me the data, the observation, then it's not knowledge.
It's just fancy poetry.
Exactly. It's just fancy poetry. He wants to clear the brush of all this metaphysical jargon so we can finally see what the human mind actually is.
And what he finds, well, it isn't very pretty, is it?
No.
If we had to try and summarize the thesis of this massive work, and I know summarizing Hume is a dangerous game, it seems like he's saying that we are not the rational godlike observers of the universe we think we are.
That is the absolute core of it. The thesis is that all knowledge, every single thing we know, comes from perception, full stop.
Okay.
And because of that, reason, this thing we prize so highly, is actually incredibly weak. It's a slave to our passions. And all the things we think are cosmic truths, things like cause and effect or even our own identity, are just habit.
Just habit.
They're fictions. Fictions created by our imagination to help us get by.
Fictions to help us survive.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a haunting phrase.
It is.
Let's break this down. Let's start with book 1 of the understanding. This is where he gets out the scalpel and dissects the anatomy of the mind. And he starts with the absolute basics, the building blocks of thought.
He draws a hard line right at the beginning. 2 types of perceptions, impressions and ideas.
I found this distinction really, really helpful. So impressions are the raw feed, the immediate sensations.
All right. He says it's the force and liveliness that distinguishes them. An impression is when you actually burn your hand on a hot stove. It's violent, it's loud, it just consumes your attention. It includes sensations, passions, emotions as they first appear in the soul.
And an idea is what happens later. When you're sitting here talking about it, it's the memory of the burn.
Yes, exactly. Ideas are the faint images of impressions in thinking and reasoning. When you sit here and think about the word pain, you aren't screaming. You're just manipulating a sort of lower resolution copy of that original vivid sensation.
And this leads to what scholars call his copy principle. This seems to be the weapon he uses to destroy all of metaphysics. He says you literally cannot have an idea unless you first had impression.
It's his golden rule, his one simple test. Every simple idea is a copy of a corresponding simple impression. If you haven't felt it, seen it, heard it, if you haven't had the raw data come in, you can't think it.
But wait a second, I can think of a golden mountain. I've never seen a mountain made of solid gold. So doesn't that violate the rule right there?
Ah, yes, that's the first objection everyone makes. But Hume is ready for it. He would ask you, have you seen gold?
Yes, of course.
Have you seen a mountain?
Yes.
Then your imagination has just performed a simple cut and paste operation. You've combined 2 simple ideas, the idea of gold and the idea of a mountain, both of which were derived from prior impressions. You haven't created a new idea from scratch.
You've just rearranged the furniture.
You've just rearranged the furniture. The mind is a collage artist, not a painter. We can only work with the scraps we've gathered from experience.
And this is where it becomes a weapon.
Right. Hume suggests we use this as a test. Whenever a philosopher starts using a big, fancy word like substance or essence or divinity, we should ask a very simple question. From what impression is that supposed idea derived?
And if they can't point to the specific sensation, the specific feeling or sight or sound.
But then he says we should throw it to the flames. It's meaningless. It's just a sound we make with our mouths. If there's no impression backing it up, the so-called idea is a fraud.
That is such a brutal standard. He's like a bouncer at the club of reality. Sorry, no impression, you don't get in.
And he uses this bouncer to kick out some very, very important philosophical guests. For instance, he attacks abstract ideas. This is a famous long-running debate in philosophy. Can we think of a triangle in the abstract? Not an isosceles one, not a scalene one, just a generic, pure triangle.
The intuitive answer is yes, right? I can talk about triangles without specifying all the angles.
You can talk about them, but Hume argues you can't actually conceive of one. I mean, try it right now. Close your eyes and picture a triangle.
Okay.
Does it have specific line lengths? A specific shape?
Yeah, it kind of looks like an equilateral one. It's pretty clear.
Exactly. You picture a specific concrete triangle. Then your mind attaches a general label to it, the word triangle, which allows you to apply that image to other shapes that look somewhat similar. But the abstract triangle itself, the pure form, doesn't exist in your mind. All ideas are particular.
We just use language to trick ourselves into thinking we've grasped some universal concept.
That's his view. But, kicking out abstract triangles is just the warm-up act.
Right.
The main event in Book I, the thing that reportedly woke Immanuel Kant from his dogmatic slumber, is Hume's attack on causation.
This is the wrecking ball, because if you stop and think about it, cause and effect is the absolute glue of the universe. It's how we do science, it's how we live our lives. I drop this pen, it falls. Fire causes heat. Impact causes motion. We just assume there is a necessary connection between the cause and the effect.
We do. It feels fundamental. It's not just that the pen falls. It's that gravity makes it fall. There's a power, a force, a secret tie that binds the 2 events together.
So Hume applies his strict test.
He does, he says. Point to the impression of that power.
He uses the billiard ball example, which is just classic.
Picture it. A white ball rolls across the green felt. It makes contact with a red ball. The red ball then moves. Now, freeze the frame. What did you actually see?
I saw the white ball move. I saw the two balls touch. Then I saw the red ball move. That's it.
Did you see the power being transferred from one to the other? Did you perceive the energy? Did you observe the necessity?
Well, when you put it that way.
No.
I saw the motion, contact, and then more motion.
He breaks it down into three things we actually perceive. Contiguity in space and time, so they're touching. Succession, so one happens after the other. And constant conjunction, which means it happens the same way every time we watch it.
And that's it.
That is the entire data set. The force, the cause, the must. We have that in our own minds. It's not in the billiard balls.
But hold on a minute. This feels deeply wrong. If I hold my hand over a fire, I know it will burn me. It's not just a guess. It feels like a law. Is he really saying that all of science is just recording a bunch of coincidences?
This is what's known as the problem of induction. Hume asks this devastatingly simple question. Why do you believe the sun will rise tomorrow?
Because it always has.
You might say, because it has risen every single day for billions of years, but that is just a statement about the past. What rule of logic allows you to project that pattern into the future?
Well, the laws of nature are constant. The universe is uniform.
And how do you know that? Maybe they change tomorrow morning. There is no logical contradiction in the sentence, the sun will not rise tomorrow. It's a perfectly coherent thought. You can't prove it false using logic alone. The way you can prove 2 + 2 + 5 is false.
So we can't actually prove the future will resemble the past.
We can't. He uses this great example of Adam, the biblical first man. Imagine Adam opens his eyes for the very first time. He sees a river. The water is clear. It's fluid. It's transparent. Can he, just by looking at it and using his pure reason, deduce that it will drown him?
No, of course not. He'd have to jump in and start choking to figure that out.
Exactly. The qualities of transparency and fluidity have absolutely no logical connection to suffocation. Experience is the only teacher, and experience only ever tells us what has happened, not what must happen.
So if it isn't reason that tells us the sun will rise or that fire will burn, what is it?
It's custom. It's habit.
Just habit.
We are like Pavlov's dogs. We hear the bell, the white ball moving towards the red one, and we start to salivate, we expect the food, we expect the red ball to move. It's a purely psychological mechanism, not a rational insight. We have been conditioned by repetition to expect the future to be like the past.
That is incredibly humbling. I mean, it suggests that our most advanced physics is, at its absolute core, just a really, really well-established habit.
That's the implication.
We haven't actually peeked under the hood of the universe. We've just watched the traffic for a very long time and gotten good at predicting the flow.
And this fundamentally changes what belief even is. Hume argues that believing the sun will rise isn't a rational calculation you perform, it's a feeling. It's a lively idea that's associated with a present impression. You just feel the reality of that future event. It's much more like an emotion than a syllogism.
Okay, so this naturally moves us into part 2, the skeptical crisis. Because once you pull that thread of causation, the whole sweater starts to unravel, doesn't it?
It really does.
If we can't even prove cause and effect, how in the world do we know there's an external world at all?
This is what he calls the double existence fallacy. Hume points out that we all naturally believe the world is out there, solid and independent of us. He calls this the view of the vulgar, and he means that in the old sense of, common people, not as an insult.
The common sense view. I see the table, therefore the table is there.
Right. But then you have the philosophers, and they realize that what you actually experience is an image in your mind, a perception. If you press your eyeball with your finger, the table doubles.
The table in the world didn't double.
No, your perception did. So the philosophers get clever and they say, okay, there are perceptions in the mind, and these perceptions represent objects out there in the world.
But Hume attacks that bridge too.
He just asks, how can you ever check? You can't step outside of your own mind to compare the image with the real object. You are trapped in the cinema of your own brain. You only ever see the screen. You can never see the projector or the film reel.
So reason can't prove the existence of an external world.
It's impossible.
We just believe it because our imagination craves consistency. It needs things to be stable. If the world blinked out of existence every time I close my eyes, it would be chaotic. So my imagination just papers over the gaps and says, don't worry, the table's still there.
It's a useful fiction we construct for our own sanity. But if you think the external world is a shaky concept, just wait until he turns that same logic on the internal world.
Right.
This is the part that gives people real existential vertigo, the self.
The bundle theory. This is probably the most famous or infamous part of the entire treatise.
It is. Most of us, we operate with the basic assumption that there is an I, a pilot in the cockpit, a soul, a single unified substance that remains me from birth until death.
I am the container for my thoughts and feelings.
Right. And Hume says, okay, show me. He performs a simple experiment of introspection. He looks inside his own mind to try and find this self, and he reports back that he fails completely.
What does he find instead?
He finds some particular perception or other. He finds heat or cold, light or shade, love or hatred, pain or pleasure. He finds all the contents of the stream, but he can never, ever find the riverbed. He never catches himself at any time without a perception, and never can observe anything but the perception.
It's like looking for the white screen in a movie theater. But the movie is playing so fast, and it's filling your vision so completely that you can never actually see the screen underneath it all.
But Hume goes even further. He suggests there is no screen.
There's only the movie.
There is only the movie. We are, in his exact words, nothing but a bundle or collection of different perceptions which succeed each other with an inconceivable rapidity and are in a perpetual flux and movement.
A bundle. Just a loose collection of flashbang experiences tied together with the string of memory.
He uses this great analogy of a theater. He says the mind is a kind of theater where various perceptions make their appearance, pass, repass, glide away. But then he immediately warns us not to be fooled by the analogy.
How so?
He says the comparison of the theater must not mislead us. There is properly no simplicity in the mind at one time, nor identity indifferent.
Meaning there is no building, there is no stage, there are just the actors?
Exactly. The actors, the perceptions themselves, create the powerful illusion of a theater. We feel like a single, unified self because our memory links yesterday's breakfast to today's hunger, and our imagination smooths over the transition. But it's a kind of grammatical error. We say I because it's convenient, not because it's factually true.
So just to recap Book 1, causation is a habit. The external world is an unprovable assumption, and the self is a fictional illusion. He has effectively detonated reality. If he just stopped here, this would be a manual for total nihilism.
It would be completely paralyzing. And Hume admits as much. He ends Book 1 in this state of philosophical melancholy and delirium. He says he feels like a monster, expelled from society, utterly alone in a meaningless universe.
But he doesn't stop. He writes Book 2 of the Passions. And this shift is so crucial because he moves from how we think to how we feel. And as it turns out, the feelings are what save us from the thinking.
Book 2 is essentially a mechanical manual for the emotions. It's amazing. He treats passions like gears in a watch. He wants to know exactly what causes them and what they produce.
Take pride and humility. He breaks pride down into like an algorithm.
It's surprisingly systematic. He says pride requires two things, an object and a cause. The object of pride is always the self. You can't be proud of something that has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Right. I can admire the Grand Canyon, but I can't be proud of it unless I happen to own it or I somehow carved it myself.
Exactly. And the cause must be something valuable or beautiful that is related to you. So if I own a beautiful house, the house produces a sensation of pleasure. That pleasure then gets associated with the idea of me, the self. And the mind combines pleasure plus self, and the output is the passion of pride. It's just input-output.
It's not a moral sin, it's a psychological mechanism.
Yeah.
But the most important mechanism in Book 2, and this sets up his entire moral theory later on, is sympathy.
We have to be really careful with this word. Today, sympathy just means I feel bad for you. For Hume, sympathy is a technical term for emotional contagion. It's the technology that allows one human bundle to communicate with another human bundle.
Okay, so how does it work?
Think of two violin strings tuned to the same note. If you pluck a G string on one violin, the G string on the violin sitting next to it will start to vibrate on its own. It's resonance. Hume says we are all strung the same way. When I see you expressing an emotion like screaming in pain, I first get the idea of your pain in my mind. But because we're similar creatures, that idea is instantly converted into an impression.
It becomes lively. It becomes real. I don't just know you're in pain. I literally feel a faint echo of your pain in my own body.
It is sympathy. It's the bridge. It converts the idea of another's passion into the impression of it in ourselves. Without this mechanism, we'd all be sociopaths. We'd be completely isolated black boxes.
And this leads him directly into his discussion of free will, or what he calls liberty and necessity. Because if we're just bundles of perceptions and mechanical passions, do we have any choice at all in what we do?
This is one of the most sophisticated and misunderstood parts of the text. Hume is what we would now call a compatibilist, though he argues for a very strict determinism. He believes human actions are just as determined as the laws of physics.
He calls it necessity.
Yes. And he argues that far from being a problem, we actually rely on this necessity every single day. When you go to a restaurant, you eat the food they give you, you rely on the cook not to poison you. Why?
Because of the cook's character, their self-interest. I'm predicting their behavior.
You are predicting their behavior based on cause and effect. You believe their character, the cause, will produce a certain action, the effect.
If human behavior wasn't determined, if it was totally random liberty, society would just collapse.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk down the street because I couldn't predict that the driver of a bus wouldn't suddenly decide to drive onto the sidewalk for no reason at all.
Exactly. We need determinism. He gives this wonderful example of a prisoner in a tower. The prisoner looks at the stone walls and the iron bars and knows he can't escape. That's physical necessity. Then he looks at the guard, who is an honest and stubborn man, and knows he won't be bribed. That's moral necessity.
He's treating the guard's psychology as just another solid wall.
The prisoner foresees his own death by the constancy of the guard's nature just as clearly as he would by the force of gravity if the cage were hung from a tower. But here is the brilliant twist. Hume argues that moral responsibility requires determinism.
That feels completely backward. Usually people say, if I was forced to do it by my character or my upbringing, you can't blame me.
Hume says the absolute opposite. Think about it. If your action was not caused by your character, if it was a random, uncaused act of liberty, totally unconnected to who you are, then why would I blame you for it?
It was just a glitch, an accident.
It was an accident. We only blame people when we think the action flowed necessarily from their durable character, from who they are. We praise them and blame them because their actions are determined by their inner nature.
That is a brilliant jujitsu move. He uses the very existence of blame to prove we don't have free will in the way most people think. We just act according to our nature.
And this brings us to the absolute climax of Book 2, the relationship between reason and passion. This is the quote that everyone knows, even if they've never read Hume.
Reason is and ought only to be the slave of the passions.
It is the ultimate demotion of reason in the history of philosophy. Plato, Descartes, the entire Christian tradition, they all said reason is the king, the noble charioteer holding the reins of the wild horses of passion.
And Hume says, no. The horses are in charge. The charioteer is just the GPS.
Right. He means that reason is inert. It can't generate a drive. It can't make you want anything.
Reason deals with truth and falsehood. It deals with facts. This apple is red. This apple costs $1. But reason cannot tell you, I want the apple.
Yeah.
That desire, that push, has to come from passion.
Reason can tell you how to steal the apple or how to buy the apple, but it can't provide the initial motive.
It's just a tool.
Just a tool. And Hume pushes this to a terrifying extreme to prove his point. He says, and this is a direct quote, "It is not contrary to reason to prefer the destruction of the whole world to the scratching of my finger."
I remember reading that and just thinking, okay, David, maybe calm down a little. It sounds insane. Surely it's unreasonable to destroy the world for a minor scratch.
It's monstrous, certainly. It's horrible, but is it illogical? That's his point. There is no mathematical equation or logical proof that says value of world, value of finger. That valuation comes from sentiment, not from logic. If I don't happen to care about the world, reason has no tools to force me to care. Reason can only serve the desires I already have.
So if I choose to save the world instead of my finger, it's not because I'm being smart or rational. It's because I have a passion, call it benevolence or sympathy, that happens to be stronger than the passion of avoiding the scratch.
Yes. The conflict is never reason versus passion. It's always one passion versus another passion. And reason is just the scout we send out to find the best way to satisfy whichever passion wins the internal battle.
This sets the stage perfectly for Book 3 of Morals. Because if reason is just a slave, then morality cannot possibly be a product of reason.
This is the death blow to the whole rationalist school of ethics. Hume's argument is simple. Step 1, morality is practical. It moves us to action. We do good things, we avoid bad things.
Right.
Step 2, we just prove that reason is inert and can't move anything on its own. Therefore, morality cannot be derived from reason.
It has to come from somewhere else. It comes from sentiment, from feeling.
Exactly. And this is where he identifies the famous Esot gap. He notices this very sneaky move that philosophers make. They start by listing a bunch of facts. God is our creator. Society is structured in this way, which are all is statements. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, they switch to ought. Therefore, you ought to obey God.
And he says you can't cross that bridge. There's a gap there.
You cannot logically deduce a value in ought from a set of facts, from an is. There was a missing link in the argument. The conclusion contains something, a moral command, that wasn't in the premises.
Can I push back on that a little? If I see a watch on the ground and its gears are smashed, that's a fact. It's an is. Doesn't that directly lead to you ought to fix it?
Hume would say absolutely not. The fact is the gears are not moving. That is the state of reality. The ought, the idea that it should be moving, comes entirely from you. It comes from your desire to tell time. If you were a person who hated knowing the time, the smashed watch would be perfect. The defect isn't in the object. It's in your reaction to the object.
He uses that really striking example of parricide, a child killing a parent, to prove this point.
It's a very powerful image. He says, first, look at a sapling of baby oak tree. It grows up in the shadow of its parent oak. Eventually, it grows so large and strong that it chirks the life out of the parent tree, taking all the sunlight and nutrients.
Okay, the offspring destroys the parent. A natural process.
Now look at a human child who murders their parent to get an inheritance.
One is nature, the other is murder. They feel completely different.
But Hume asks, where is the difference in the facts, in the relations? In both cases, the offspring causes the death of the parent. The physics of it, the chain of events, are identical.
Well, the tree has no choice, no malice.
Even setting choice aside for a moment, Hume's point is that you can examine the crime scene, the knife, the wound, the body with a microscope, and you'll never find the little particle of vice. You will never see the sin. The vice completely escapes you until you turn your reflection into your own breast and find a sentiment of disapproval which arises in you towards this action.
So morality is a projection. We are painting the world with the colors of our internal sentiments. We see the murder, we feel a sense of revulsion, yuck, and we label that external act vice.
Precisely. Morality is more like matters of taste than like geometry. We taste the act and we find it bitter or sweet.
And this leads to his distinction between natural and artificial virtues. So natural virtues are things like kindness, charity, meekness. We feel those immediately because of our built-in sympathy.
We approve of them instinctively. They feel good.
But then you have things like justice, property, keeping promises. And Hume says these are artificial.
This was hugely controversial. He argues that in a hypothetical state of nature, justice doesn't exist. There is no concept of mine and thine. Justice is a human invention, a piece of social technology that we built for a specific purpose.
Why did we build it? What was the purpose?
Because of our specific situation. He outlines what he calls the circumstances of justice. He says it only arises because of two key facts about our world. One, selfishness and limited generosity. We love our families, but we don't really care that much about total strangers.
Don't you?
Two, scarcity of resources. There isn't enough stuff to go around for everyone to have everything they want.
Let's unpack that scarcity bit. He uses that golden age thought experiment.
Right. Imagine a world of total abundance. A world where every time you want a peach, a perfect peach just appears in your hand. The rivers flow with wine. The climate is always perfect.
In that world, would we have laws about property theft?
Of course not. Why would you ever steal my peach? You can just grab another one. Justice becomes totally useless. It serves no purpose, so it doesn't exist.
Now imagine the opposite. A besieged city, everyone is starving to death.
In that case, justice also collapses. It's every man for himself. You steal a loaf of bread to survive. The rules of property are suspended because they get in the way of the more powerful instinct for survival.
So justice only exists in this Goldilocks zone. We have some stuff, but not enough for everyone to have everything. And we have some generosity, but not enough to just share everything with everyone all the time.
Exactly. Justice is a set of conventions we all agree on to stabilize society so we can accumulate goods and live without constant conflict. It's not written in the stars. It's written in the social contract we implicitly sign with each other.
And we stick to it because, thanks to sympathy, we can feel the pain and chaos that injustice causes to the whole society.
That's the glue. We approve of justice because it is useful to society, and through sympathy, the pleasure of a well-ordered society becomes our own pleasure.
It's a stunningly secular, almost sociological explanation of right and wrong.
It is. He completely removed God and cosmic reason from the equation of morality and replaced them with human psychology and social utility.
So we've toured the ruins. He's dismantled the self, causation, and objective morality. What on earth was the reaction when this book was published?
Absolute silence. Hume famously wrote that the book fell dead-born from the press. It was too complex, too long, too radical. Nobody got it.
But it was a time bomb.
A very slow-burning one. Decades later, Immanuel Kant read a German translation or summary of Hume's arguments on causation, and he famously said it was the thing that woke him from his dogmatic slumber.
Right.
The entire history of German idealism, Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer, is basically a massive, sophisticated reaction to Hume. They were all trying to find a way to save philosophy from the wrecking ball that Hume had just swung through it.
And yet, despite being the ultimate skeptic, the man who proved we can't be sure of anything, Hume himself wasn't a miserable guy.
Not at all. And this is the most beautiful and human part of the entire treatise, I think. The conclusion of Book 1. He describes this dark night of the soul where he's followed his reason to the edge of the abyss and he sees the void. But then he gives us the cure.
The cure for nihilism.
And it isn't more philosophy. It isn't a better argument. It's carelessness and inattention.
He basically says, stop thinking so hard. Go hang out with your friends.
That's literally what he says. He says, I dine, I play a game of backgammon, I converse, and am merry with my friends. And when he returns to his philosophical books after 3 or 4 hours of this amusement, all that intense skepticism seems cold and strained and ridiculous.
Nature takes over. Biology takes over. We are biologically wired to believe in the world and in ourselves, even if we can't rationally prove it.
Exactly. Philosophy creates a wound that only life can heal. We can't reason our way out of the trap that reason created, but we can live our way out of it.
That is the ultimate takeaway, isn't it? A profound intellectual humility. We aren't gods. We're just bundles of feelings and habits trying to get through the day.
And maybe playing a little backgammon along the way.
Speaking of games, it is time for our favorite segment.
Thought experiments.
And just a quick reminder for everyone listening, these are hypotheticals for entertainment and educational purposes only. Do not attempt to build these machines.
Please don't, especially not this first one.
Experiment number 1, the teleporter problem. This is a classic sci-fi trope, but I want to look at it through the very specific lens of Hume's bundle theory.
Okay, let's do it.
So you stop into a teleporter on Earth. It scans every single perception in your bundle. Every memory, every habit, every feeling, every scar. It beams that information, that data set, to Mars. On Mars, a machine reassembles a body atom for atom and imprints that data onto it. The Earth you is then vaporized.
Standard procedure for interstellar travel.
The question is the person who wakes up on Mars you?
Well, if you ask a dualist, someone who believes in a non-physical soul, they're going to say, absolutely not. The soul didn't travel through the beam. You died. The person on Mars is a perfect clone, a zombie, but not you.
But what would Hume say?
Hume would ask, what is this you that you were so worried about losing? Remember, for him, there is no core self. There is no soul, no little homunculus driving the machine. There is only the collection of perceptions and the causal links between them, which we call memory.
So since the Mars you has all the memories and the personality,
then the Mars you satisfies all the criteria for identity that the Earth you did. Identity for Hume is just a fiction we create based on continuity of experience. If the continuity feels real, if the memories connect, then it is real for all practical purposes. The bundle has simply moved its physical location.
Okay, but here's the twist. The machine on Earth malfunctions. It successfully creates the Mars you, but it fails to vaporize the Earth you.
Ah, now we have a problem.
Now there are 2 of you. They both have all your memories up to the moment you stepped in the machine.
Yeah.
They both think they're the real one. They both remember hosting this deep dive.
This exact situation is what destroys the concept of a simple, indivisible, substantial self. If the self was a single thing, like a soul, it couldn't be in 2 places at once. But if the self is just a data set, a bundle of perceptions, then there's no paradox at all. We just have 2 bundles now.
It's like copying a file on a computer. You don't ask which one is the real Word document. They're both the document. They're identical copies.
Exactly. Hume would say our confusion here comes from our grammar, not from reality. We have an irresistible urge to use the singular pronoun I, but really we should just say this bundle. And now there are two distinct bundles. It's only a philosophical problem if you cling to the illusion of a soul.
Wow, okay. Experiment number 2, the AI judge.
Testing reason versus passion. I like this one.
We build a super intelligent AI. It's a pure logic engine. It has perfect access to all facts. It can simulate physics, biology, economics, history, everything. It is pure reason incarnate.
A Humean dream. Or maybe a nightmare.
We present it with a classic ethical dilemma. A library containing the only surviving copies of lost Shakespeare plays is on fire. At the other end of the building, a single child is also trapped inside. You can only save one. The building is about to collapse.
And we ask the AI to decide.
We ask it to use its massive processing power to give us the rational answer. What does it do?
According to Hume, the AI does absolutely nothing.
Just freezes a blue screen of death.
It doesn't even freeze. It just observes. It calculates the burning temperature of ancient paper. It calculates the biological processes of a human child ceasing to function. It knows all the is facts of the situation with perfect clarity, but it cannot generate an ought.
But surely it can calculate that a human life is worth more than old paper.
Worth is a value judgment. And values, for Hume, come from sentiment, from passion. Unless we have programmed that AI with a passion, a hard-coded, non-rational preference for human life, it cannot care. To the AI's pure reason, the child dying is just one rearrangement of atoms. The book's burning is another rearrangement of atoms. Neither is intrinsically irrational.
Because, as Hume famously said, reason is the slave of the passions. The AI has no master, so it has no orders.
It's completely inert. It's a Ferrari engine with no steering wheel and no driver. It needs a human heart, or at least a simulation of one, to tell it where to go and what matters.
So the ultimate danger of a superintelligent AI isn't that it will spontaneously turn evil. It's that it will be profoundly, perfectly, and rationally indifferent.
Or even worse, that we will accidentally give it the wrong passions. If we tell it its ultimate goal is to maximize paper clips, a passion, reason will use all of its godlike brilliance to turn the entire solar system into paper clips. Reason is a weapon. It just serves whoever holds the handle.
That is a chilling thought to end on. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the billiard table to the burning library.
It's a journey that really strips you down. It takes away your certainty, your ego, your sense of a solid, objective morality.
But it does give you something back too, doesn't it? It gives you a world that is, for better or worse, human-sized. We are social animals making it up as we go along, held together by nothing more and nothing less than sympathy and habit.
And Hume's final point is that that's enough. We don't need to be angels or gods. Being a bundle is actually pretty interesting, and it's all we've got.
Just remember to play some backgammon if the void starts to stare back too hard.
Always.
The link to the treatise will be in the show notes. It's a tough read, but as you can tell, it changes you. Thanks for listening to Talk Treatises.